And welcome back to the show. This is Attorneys on Call. In studio with us now, Ann Oxner, one of the attorneys with the Whitley Law Firm, and of course Susan Walston, our special guest here, who was injured in that horrific crash 6 years ago. But thank the Lord you're still here and you're doing well. And you were a big part, as Bob said in the last segment, of the following this all the way through to the Supreme Court, right?
That's correct, Drew. Yeah.
So tell me what that process was like. And Susan, you're, as you said earlier, you kind of just put your life in the Whitley's hands and said, you know, okay, you've got to manage us through this. And Bob had a lot of nice things to say about the way you managed that process. But what was that like?
It was an uphill climb. It's probably the best, shortest description I can give of that. So Bob made a reference to, the trial court we lost at the trial court. Essentially, they said you can't have this claim against this law enforcement officer. He's immune from lawsuit because he's a law enforcement officer, and the insurance policy didn't apply. So we had to raise those issues on appeal to the North Carolina Court of Appeals.
Okay.
And so in order to get back to be able to have a trial for her case, we had to win on all issues. So I mean, if we were to win on one but not the other, we still would have been out of court.
With the appellate court.
Correct, and not able to get back to the trial court. So
Okay.
we had to prevail on all issues. And so yeah, that was a bit of an uphill climb. But every case is driven by its facts. And I remember sitting in our conference room talking to Ms. Walston as we were preparing for the appeal. Mm-hmm. And of course, our clients all want to know, how's my case going to turn out?
Sure.
Which is a valid question. And we can never, no lawyer can guarantee an outcome in
Right.
any case.
Right.
But I do remember saying, the facts of your case are as good as they can be for us to, have an opportunity. And so,
Susan, that was a harrowing time for you, I'm sure. Tell me what were your thoughts at that time? You were thinking this is not going to end well, or?
Well, Bob called me, and I was actually walking out of work, and I answered my phone, and he said...
You're back at work at this time?
I was, and he said, we lost I guess it was appeal?
the summary judgment.
The summary judgment. And I was a bit shocked, and I said, well, you know what? They won the battle, but they have not won the war. And I didn't cry. I never cried over the whole time. I just turned it over. And I want to say a little bit about Ann, because when Bob turned me over to Ann, I thought, well, he just let me go. And I didn't understand. But I think if he hadn't turned me over to her, we wouldn't be here, because she took it, she ran with it, she did all the diligent work. Even if it was nerdy, who cares?
Right.
I mean, it
I'll stipulate to the
worked.
nerd comment.
She searched and she worked hard, and she
Yeah.
never let me down. Neither one of them let me down. But I thank God he turned me over to her. I didn't understand, but God had it all planned. And he turned me over to Ann, and Ann prevailed with God's help, Bob's help. And she worked on it until she got it right.
So this process then, now you're appealing to, or you're going to the appellate court.
To the North Carolina Court of Appeals.
And you won there.
Correct.
So you're able to go back to trial.
Well, so we won there. And in the Court of Appeals, the judges sit in panels of 3. So
Okay.
if it's a 3-0 decision,
Okay.
3-0, all in our favor, we win. If there was a dissent, then it would automatically go to the North Carolina Supreme Court.
Okay.
So in our case, it was a 3-0 decision.
Okay.
But the other side still had the chance to ask the North Carolina Supreme Court, hey, will you take a look at this? We think the North Carolina Court of Appeals got it wrong.
Okay.
Will you look at this? And so
Okay.
it was in that process. And so at that point, it's up to the North Carolina Supreme Court whether they want to take it or not, whether
Right.
they think an error potentially occurred at the Court of Appeals.
So the thing that comes to my mind throughout this whole, it's almost like you can't beat City Hall. You know the old, but you did,
She did.
right?
Well, and again, every case is driven by its facts. And so, Bob commented on, this was a law enforcement officer who was on duty. And, society recognizes that they need to get places fast
Yeah.
from time to time.
Right.
It's the trade-off. In order for them to do their jobs, they have to be able to do things without looking over their shoulder. But there are limits to that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a free pass.
Mm-hmm.
They don't get to go 100 miles an hour on the way to meet the boys for lunch at Chick-fil-A. And I'm not suggesting that that's what they do.
Right.
I mean, we have the utmost respect
But
for law
this
enforcement
happened
here.
outside of those established boundaries.
Absolutely, and that's how we established it, you know, the facts.
Right.
And establishing the facts through public records request, you know, establishing what he knew and when he knew it was key, because he was trying to say he knew something else that would have maybe justified his actions, but we were able to demonstrate that he probably didn't. And it was enough of a question that the court said a jury of 12 gets to answer the question. So.
Susan, we've just got a few seconds left here, but I want you to sort of wrap things up, and just in summation, what has your experience been like with the Whitley Law Firm? What has it meant to you?
Well, Bob told me in the beginning, he said we could lose, but I told Ann, I said I want my words to be God's words, and I wanted to. What I wanted was that it didn't happen to somebody else. And they took that and they worked with me and they never let me down. I called, I talked to somebody, I always got an answer. And it was always a positive, we're working on this, this is how it's gonna go.
Right.
If I needed to go somewhere, they came and got me, took me there. And we've been like family for the last 6 years. It's been a great experience. Without them, I wouldn't be here. Without God, I wouldn't have survived. But without them, we wouldn't have prevailed and we wouldn't have won. And we just want it to be so that it doesn't happen to somebody else. We have to have respect for them, and we want to keep our respect for them. But they do have boundaries. Thanks
for being here.
Thanks
so much for
me.
sharing your story, and thank you. And thanks for watching this edition of Attorneys on Call. We'll see you next time right here.